It's hard to pinpoint exactly when my life started to unravel. Maybe it was the moment I first caught her texting in the middle of the night, her fingers quick and guilty beneath the glow of the screen. Or perhaps it was the way she stopped looking at me the same way, like I was a man she once knew, but now a stranger. But nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that would unfold in the sterile, white halls of a hospital. I'd been sick for a while, nothing serious at first, just a few nights of fever, some aches, a general sense of exhaustion. But when I collapsed at work one afternoon, something in my body finally snapped. They rushed me to the hospital, and suddenly my world was a blur of white walls, 4 drips, and hushed voices. The doctors spoke in code, glancing at me with pity in their eyes. They didn't want me to hear their whispers. The nurses treated me like I was already gone. And that's when I saw her, the woman I had built my life with. The woman I'd loved so intensely for nearly a decade. Kate. She was sitting by my bed, her face a mask of worry, but her eyes. There was something else there. Something darker. I couldn't place it at first, not until the words slipped from her lips, cold and cutting, as if she'd been rehearsing them for days. "She doesn't need to know, doctor," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "He's not the father of my kids anyway." The room seemed to freeze. My heart stopped in my chest. The doctor's face blurred in my vision as he looked at her, then at me, as though unsure of how to proceed. I couldn't breathe. The words echoed in my ears, bouncing off the sterile walls and hollowing out my chest. My mind screamed, trying to make sense of it. The idea that Kate, the woman I trusted, the woman who'd promised me forever, could say something so cruel, so final. But what cut deeper was the fact that it wasn't just a slip of the tongue, a misstep in the heat of the moment. No, she meant it. I stared at her. The woman I had been vulnerable with, the woman I had built a family with. A family that now, it seemed, was a lie. But then, the doctor spoke again. His words were soft but deliberate. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes, but I need to clarify something. You're not the biological mother of the children either." The silence that followed could have suffocated me. Kate's eyes widened, and for the first time in what felt like years, I saw real fear flicker across her face. She swallowed hard, trying to mask it with a forced laugh. "What do you mean by that?" Her voice trembled. The doctor, a calm and composed man, adjusted his glasses before continuing, each word seeming to slice through the air with precision. "I'm afraid the results we received confirm that your genetic material does not match the children's. They're not yours, either, Mrs. Hayes." The world tilted. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. I glanced at Kate. She was visibly shaking now, her gaze darting to the floor, her hand gripping the edge of the hospital bed so tightly her knuckles turned white. I wanted to speak, to say something, anything to break the tension. But the weight of her words, the ones she'd said so casually, so coldly, kept me frozen in place. Are you sure?" Kate's voice cracked, barely a whisper. The doctor nodded, his expression still unreadable. I could hardly process the shock, the betrayal, the lie that had been building right beneath my nose for years. But what chilled me even more was the sudden realization that she had known. She had known the whole time. My mind raced through every moment I thought I had shared with her, every moment I had trusted her. Each laugh, each tender kiss, each promise of forever were all lies. The children weren't mine. And she wasn't mine either. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to lash out at her for everything she'd done to me. But I couldn't. My body betrayed me, weak and broken from the illness that had brought me here in the first place. My mind, however, was sharp, clearer than it had been in months. This wasn't the time for anger. It wasn't the time for revenge. It was the time for clarity. I watched as Kate tried to gather herself, trying to pull together the pieces of her composure. But her panic was unmistakable. "I don't understand," she whispered. "How could this happen?" The doctor didn't seem to want to say more. He turned to leave, but I stopped him. "Wait." My voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. What about me? The doctor paused, glancing at Kate before turning back to me. You're the father, he said simply. The test results confirm it. Your genetic profile matches the children's. I felt as though the floor had been pulled out from under me. My thoughts raced. My body screamed with disbelief. What the hell was going on? How could this have happened? How could I have been so blind? Kate wasn't even looking at me now. She was staring down at her lap, biting her lip as if trying to hide something. Over the next few days, I drifted between shock and numbness. The hospital room became my prison, my body's weakness a constant reminder that I couldn't escape the truth. Kate stayed by my side, but it was clear that something had shifted. There was no warmth in her touch, no affection in her eyes. She spoke in short, clipped sentences, avoiding eye contact when she did. I knew she was guilty, but I didn't know how deep that guilt ran. Was she just a liar, or was there something far darker at play? Had she truly been unfaithful, or had she made some mistake in a moment of weakness? The thought that the kids, my children, might not even be mine, sent waves of rage and confusion surging through me. It didn't make sense. How had I not noticed? How had I been so blind? As the days passed, I started to piece together fragments of what had been. Kate's behavior had always been erratic in the months leading up to my hospitalization, but I had dismissed it as stress. Her late nights, her cold silences. The way she'd avoided answering simple questions about her past, the things she'd been hiding. But then I found the evidence. One night, while she was away getting dinner, I dug through her things, her phone, her drawers, her journals. It was there that I found the messages. Dozens of them, some dating back years. Texts to another man, a man whose name I had never heard. She had been having an affair, and not just with one man but several. The children, my children, were not mine. A sick, twisted realization crept over me as I sat there, scrolling through the messages. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that Kate had so skillfully woven her lies around me. I had been nothing but a pawn in her game, a man who'd been played. But what did I want now? Revenge? Justice? Or was I just looking for a way to hold on to something that had already slipped through my fingers? I confronted her later that night, my heart racing with fury and desperation. The moment I stepped into our bedroom, I could tell she knew. She knew what I had found. She could smell the change in the air. You don't have to pretend anymore, I said, my voice low, barely a whisper. I know everything, Kate. The kids. They're not mine. She froze, her eyes widening with fear. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like a ghost, pale and fragile, as though the weight of her own guilt was pressing down on her. What the hell is going on? I demanded, my fists clenched by my sides. How long? How long have you been lying to me? Kate's eyes filled with tears, but there was no apology there. No remorse. Just a cold, calculating look as she took a step toward me. I never wanted you to know, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why didn't you just leave me? I shot back, my voice rising. Why drag me along like this? Why make me believe I was something I wasn't? I was scared, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I couldn't leave you. You were everything I ever wanted. But I needed someone else too. The silence that followed was suffocating. The truth hung between us, unbearable. I didn't know what I was hoping for anymore. I didn't know if I wanted her to beg for forgiveness or if I just wanted her to admit the full truth. But what happened next changed everything. I'm sorry, she said, almost as though it was an afterthought, but I never loved you the way you loved me. I don't think I ever did. The words hit like a sledgehammer, breaking everything inside me. I had been so naive, so blind to the person she had become. The woman who had told me I was the one she would always choose, the woman who had promised me forever, had never meant a single word. I didn't want to forgive her. I didn't know if I could. But in that moment, something shifted inside of me. It was as though the pain and the betrayal had forged me into something stronger. I turned to leave. "I don't need you anymore," I said. "And neither do the kids." She didn't stop me. I walked out of that house that night with the satisfaction of knowing I had taken back control. But even as I walked away, I knew I would never be the same. Weeks later, I found myself sitting in my new apartment, looking at the small photo of my children that I had kept with me. They were still my children, even if they weren't mine by blood. And in that, I found some peace. Kate had moved out, and the divorce proceedings were underway. She had tried to contact me, but I didn't respond. I couldn't bring myself to. The doctor's words still echoed in my mind, but I had moved beyond the betrayal. I had taken my life back. I had no more illusions about love, no more fantasies about what could have been. The truth was harsh, but it had set me free. I was no longer the man she had manipulated. And that, in the end, was the only victory that mattered.